Have you ever heard that old story about a monster, half man, half bull, living in a giant maze? Well, what if I told you the maze was a real place? Today, we're taking a trip back in time, way back, to uncover the secrets of the incredible Palace of Knossos, a place that sparked one of the most famous myths ever.
When most people hear the name Knossos, their minds jump straight to Greek mythology. You know the one? The story of the Minotaur, a terrifying creature trapped deep inside a twisting, impossible maze called the Labyrinth.
But here's where it gets really interesting. What if that legendary maze wasn't a maze at all? What if it was actually a real-life palace, the thriving heart of a super-advanced civilization that was totally lost to history for thousands of years? So let's start there, with how that very legend guided archaeologists to one of the most amazing discoveries of all time.
Okay, so picture this. It's the early 1900s, and an archaeologist named Sir Arthur Evans is totally fascinated by the Minotaur myth. He was convinced there was some truth to it, so he followed the clues to the island of Crete and just started digging. And after years of hard work, he found something unbelievable, the ruins of a gigantic palace. He didn't find a monster, but he found something even better, a lost civilization we now call the Minoans.
So what exactly did he find inside this place? Let's take a look inside the Great Palace. And believe me, this was way more than just a house for a king.
First of all, this place was enormous. The entire palace complex at Knossos sprawled across about 5 acres. To give you an idea, that's nearly the size of 4 football fields all put together. It was huge.
And crammed into that huge space, over 1,000 individual rooms, hallways, and chambers, all interconnected. Can you imagine trying to find your way around in there? No wonder people thought it was a maze.
And that is almost certainly how the legend of the Labyrinth got started. The palace itself was so big and so confusing to outsiders that it must have seemed like a giant, inescapable maze. The reality inspired the myth.
The Minoans were also absolutely brilliant engineers. They built this palace to last, using these heavy limestone blocks for the foundation. But here's the clever part. They built timber frames inside the stone walls. Why would they do that? Well, wood is flexible, and this design helped the massive building survive earthquakes, which are pretty common in that area. So smart.
Right at the very heart of this huge complex was the central court. This was a massive, paved, open-air space, about 180 feet long. Think of it as the main town square. It connected all the different wings of the palace, and it's probably where they held big festivals and important religious ceremonies.
But Knossos wasn't just a collection of grand buildings. It was a living, breathing place. So let's dig into some of the secrets of their daily life, because you're going to find it was surprisingly modern. For the rulers and the elite living in Knossos, yeah, life was pretty good. They lived in special apartments within the palace that were built for total comfort and luxury.
Their rooms were covered in these beautiful, colorful wall paintings called frescoes, showing all kinds of scenes from nature. The most famous one is in what's called the Queen's Megaron, which is just a fancy name for a main hall, and it has these amazing paintings of blue dolphins swimming. They even built things called light wells, basically early skylights, to funnel sunlight down into the lower floors. And get this, they had actual stone bathtubs.
But probably their most mind-blowing feature was the plumbing. Seriously. The Minoans created one of the world's first advanced plumbing systems. They had underground pipes made from clay or terracotta that brought fresh, clean water right into the palace. This water fed their bathtubs and what might just be the world's first ever flushing toilets. They also had a whole separate system of drains to take away wastewater. That is incredible engineering for something built thousands of years ago.
Now, all of this comfort and high-tech engineering was only possible because Knossos wasn't just a home. It was the engine driving a powerful, wealthy empire.
You really have to think of the palace as the central headquarters for a massive trading operation that stretched all across the Mediterranean Sea. All the wealth and power of the Minoan people was managed from right here. So how did they handle all that wealth? Well, deep in the palace storerooms, archaeologists found hundreds of these enormous ceramic jars called pithoi. I mean, some of these things were over 5 feet tall. They were used to store huge amounts of valuable goods, like olive oil, wine, and grain. This was basically their treasury and their warehouse all in one. So what were they trading? The Minoans were famous for exporting high-quality goods like olive oil, incredible pottery, and fine cloth. They would sail across the sea and trade these things for raw materials they didn't have at home, like copper and tin, which of course they needed to make bronze.
Now, to keep track of all this business, they had to write things down. At the palace, archaeologists found clay tablets with 2 different types of writing. The newer one, called Linear B, was finally deciphered back in the 1950s. It turned out to be an early form of Greek and was mostly used for keeping records. But the older script, Linear A, is still a complete mystery. To this day, nobody has been able to crack it. We have no idea what it says.
And that big, unsolved puzzle of their language leads us right into our final section. The other huge, unanswered questions that still swirl around this amazing lost civilization.
Since we can't read their stories, we have to look for clues about their beliefs in their art. And one symbol is absolutely everywhere: the bull. It was clearly a powerful, sacred animal to them. We see these incredible frescoes of a dangerous ritual we call bull leaping, where young athletes would literally vault over a charging bull. We also find figurines of a so-called snake goddess. And another common symbol is a double-headed axe, called a Labyrinth.
Which brings us to the biggest mystery of all. Around the year 1450 BCE, after centuries of being a major power, the great Palace of Knossos was violently destroyed and eventually abandoned. The entire brilliant Minoan culture just began to fade away. So the question is obvious: what happened?
Right now, there are 2 main theories, and historians still debate them. The first is a massive natural disaster. There was a gigantic volcanic eruption on the nearby island of Thera, modern-day Santorini. It could have caused devastating tsunamis and sent clouds of ash that choked out their farms and wrecked their trading ships. The other theory is foreign invasion, that warriors from mainland Greece, known as the Mycenaeans, conquered Crete and burned the palace to the ground. We just don't know for sure.
So, from a myth about a monster in a maze to the real-life capital of a brilliant society, Knossos is just this incredible place of wonder and mystery. It proves that sometimes the most amazing legends have a core of truth, and it leaves us with one last exciting question. What other secrets does our ancient past hold, just waiting for someone to uncover them?